Deep in the heart of rural Pennsylvania lay a forest shrouded in mystery and dread. Known as the Whispering Woods, the forest had a reputation for swallowing people whole. Those who dared to venture too far into its depths often vanished without a trace, leaving behind only chilling rumors. Survivors who made it back spoke of whispers in the dark, voices that knew their names, and shadows that moved when nothing should. Emma Larson had always been fascinated by the macabre. At 27, she was an aspiring journalist hungry for a story that would make her career. The tales of the Whispering Woods were perfect, unexplained disappearances, supernatural lore, and a backdrop of chilling isolation. She was warned by the locals to stay away, but Emma saw their fear as part of the allure. Armed with her camera, voice recorder, and a notebook, she set off to uncover the truth behind the whispers. The first signs of unease came almost immediately. The deeper Emma ventured into the woods, the quieter the world became. The chirping birds and rustling leaves faded until only the sound of her own breathing remained. As dusk fell, the forest transformed. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, and the air grew heavy, pressing against her chest like an invisible weight. It was then that she heard it, a faint whisper, just barely audible. Emma. She froze, her flashlight trembling in her hand. The voice was soft, almost gentle, but unmistakably hers. She scanned the trees, her light dancing across gnarled branches, but she saw no one. Dismissing it as her imagination, she pressed on, though her steps were more cautious now. As night descended, the whispers grew louder and more insistent. They came from all directions, some calling her name, others murmuring unintelligible words. Her recorder captured it all, the static interwoven with eerie voices. She tried speaking into the recorder, asking questions, but the whispers never responded. Instead, they seemed to laugh, a low, mocking sound that sent shivers down her spine. Stumbling upon an old dirt path, Emma followed it until it led her to an abandoned cabin hidden among the trees. Its windows were shattered, and the door hung loosely on its hinges. The whispers seemed to guide her toward it, growing louder with every step. Against her better judgment, she entered. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of decay. The walls were covered in strange symbols, painted in what looked like dried blood. On a rotting wooden table lay an old journal. Emma flipped through its pages, the writing frantic and barely legible. It belonged to a man named Harold Greene, who had lived in the cabin decades ago. His entries spoke of the whispers, claiming they revealed secrets about the forest and its true nature. He described seeing shadowy figures and hearing voices that promised him eternal knowledge, but at a terrible cost. The final entry read, "They want me to stay. They want me to join them. I can feel them pulling me closer. There is no escape." The moment Emma closed the journal, the cabin door slammed shut. Her flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. Panic set in as she fumbled for her backup light. When she finally turned it on, she saw them, figures standing in the corners of the room. Their forms were barely human, their faces blurred and featureless, yet their hollow eyes bored into her. She bolted out of the cabin, her pulse racing, but the forest had changed. The path she had followed was gone, replaced by an endless sea of trees. The whispers were deafening now, overlapping in a cacophony of voices. Some begged for help, others screamed in anger, and a few laughed cruelly. Emma ran blindly, her flashlight barely illuminating the twisting trees. Hours passed, or so it seemed, and she found herself in a clearing. At its center stood a massive stone altar, surrounded by piles of bones. The air was colder here, and the whispers had ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence. Before she could move, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Harold Greene, or what was left of him. His eyes were sunken, his skin pale and stretched tight over his bones. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his voice hollow. Emma begged him for help, but Harold shook his head. "The forest doesn't let anyone leave. Not without a price." "What price?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Harold gestured to her camera and recorder. "Destroy the evidence. Burn it. The truth can't leave this place. If you take it with you, they'll never let you go." Desperate, Emma hesitated, but the forest seemed to respond to her doubt. The trees creaked and groaned, their branches reaching toward her like claws. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, and the whispers began again, louder than ever. With shaking hands, she smashed her camera and recorder against the altar. She tore her notes to shreds and set them ablaze using a lighter she had in her bag. The fire roared unnaturally high, casting the clearing in an eerie glow. For a moment, the whispers stopped, and the forest fell silent. Emma looked around, expecting relief, but Harold was gone. The clearing began to twist and shift, the trees closing in around her. The ground beneath her feet felt unsteady, as though she were standing on the edge of a great abyss. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The shadows swarmed her, their cold touch wrapping around her arms, her neck, her face. The last thing Emma saw before she was consumed was the altar, now glowing faintly, as if feeding on her fear. Her screams echoed through the forest, blending with the whispers that would call to the next unlucky soul. Emma Larson was never seen again. Weeks later, a group of hikers found her burned camera and notes near the forest edge. The footage was distorted, the audio filled with static and faint whispers. Though no one could make out the words, one thing was clear: the forest had claimed her, just as it had so many before her.